Unfortunately, I'm starting to get this gut feeling that we might not even see Caitlin back on the court this season, and that might actually be the best thing. Caitlin should be out for the rest of the season. Maybe this season is just done for her. Maybe it doesn't make sense.
Injury report that Caitlin Clark is a game time decision. I think they did that for ticket sales. I think they knew that we all was going to pick up on that and pretty much say, well, you know what? There's a chance Caitlin Clark could be coming back for this game, maybe even that game.
When Caitlin Clark sat down with WNBA legend Sue Bird for what seemed like a routine interview, nobody expected her to drop a bombshell that would expose just how brutal her 2025 season has really been. With tears in her eyes, Clark admitted something that sent shockwaves through the basketball world. "I've never been through anything like this." This wasn't just about basketball. This was about a superstar facing her darkest professional moment, and the truth behind her struggles is more devastating than anyone realized.
About the Caitlin Clark injury. Let's listen to her, bro.
Caitlin starting full court running last week. Has she been able to do anything extra since then or return to practice at all?
No return to practice. She's been able to get a little bit more in her full court running, with her all of her body weight. It's really building up from doing minimal to then building some endurance to do longer periods of time. She's been able to do a little bit more on the court in terms of how she moved.
Caitlin Clark's.
So there is really no timetable as to when Caitlin Clark could return. Y'all got me? There is no set time as when CC could possibly be coming back. And as of right now, the Indiana Fever is looking real spooky because they're not keeping it at 100.
What makes this situation even more complex is the business side of professional sports. Clark isn't just a player. She's a brand, a marketing phenomenon, and arguably the most recognizable face in women's basketball. Her absence affects everything from merchandise sales to television contracts. The pressure to return isn't just coming from competitive desires, but from the economic realities of professional sports entertainment.
But it's looking like he don't care for Caitlin Clark. We know clear as day that Stephanie White has been looking in certain areas not to be feeling the Caitlin Clark effect. I don't know, but this stuff is definitely looking concerning because
looking at similar injury patterns in other elite athletes, the prognosis for Clark's immediate future remains uncertain. Soft tissue injuries can be notoriously unpredictable, especially when they become recurrent. Some athletes bounce back quickly and never have problems again. Others find themselves dealing with chronic issues that affect their entire career trajectory. At just 23 years old, Clark is at a critical juncture where the decisions made about her recovery could determine the next decade of her basketball life.
Specifically, the reporting around Caitlin Clark's injury, because I feel like it is getting stranger by the day. It has been a month now that Caitlin has.
The broader implications extend beyond Clark herself. The WNBA has invested heavily in her star power, building marketing campaigns and scheduling decisions around her presence. Her extended absence has exposed how fragile that strategy can be when it relies so heavily on one individual. League officials are undoubtedly having conversations about diversifying their star power and reducing dependence on any single player, but those are long-term solutions to an immediate problem.
Yesterday, she was listed as a game time decision for today's game against the Dallas Wings. And then after practice yesterday, Coach Stephanie White basically came out and said, no, Caitlin Clark hasn't even been practicing. So they changed it from a game time decision to her being out.
As Clark continues her recovery process, the basketball world watches and waits. Her recent admission that she's never been through anything like this reveals a vulnerability that makes her story even more compelling. She's not just fighting to return to basketball, she's fighting to reclaim the identity that injuries have temporarily stolen from her. The girl who once seemed unstoppable is learning that even superstars aren't immune to the harsh realities of professional athletics.
At the Indiana Fever's schedule right now, they only have 12 games left, and there is exactly 4 weeks left in the regular season. And the
truth about Caitlin Clark's 2025 season is still being written. Every day without a concrete return timeline adds another layer of uncertainty to a story that was supposed to be about continued dominance and breaking new barriers. Instead, it's become a tale of resilience, vulnerability, and the brutal reality that sometimes the biggest battles athletes face aren't against opponents, but against their own bodies. Whether this becomes a chapter about overcoming adversity or a turning point that changes everything remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, Caitlin Clark's toughest opponent this year has been herself.
Replying to someone else's comment who said, just can't wait until Cece is back. She's the most dynamic, electric player in the WNBA. Great job, Lexi. And then Scott Agnes replied and he said, have patience, at least several more weeks.
The numbers tell a story that's hard to believe. 19 games. That's how many regular season contests Caitlin Clark has missed this year due to injuries. To put that in perspective, she played 185 consecutive games between college and her early WNBA career without missing a single one for injury. Now, in just one season, she's dealt with 3 separate injuries that have completely derailed what was supposed to be her sophomore breakthrough year. The girl who once seemed indestructible is now battling her own body and losing.
Contenders at this point, I'm just not so sure. Do you risk another injury that can again compound and turn into something else down the line? Now,
The timeline of Clark's physical breakdown reads like a medical nightmare. It started with a quad injury in late May that was supposed to keep her out for just 2 weeks. Then came another setback before she could fully return. But the real disaster struck on July 15th when she suffered a groin injury that has kept her sidelined ever since. What makes this even more concerning is that these aren't freak accidents or contact injuries. These are soft tissue problems, the kind that suggest a body under too much stress, pushed too hard, too fast.
A star player like that, we will never know all the information, nor should we know all the information, and that's actually good for Caitlin. It protects her for when she does come back on the court. She can't be targeted. Teams can't use a certain injury or ailment against her if people don't really know what is going on. But they're thrown back into any mix if she doesn't have significant practices under her belt before she goes into game speed. You can try to simulate game speed as much as you want in practice.
Behind the scenes, the medical picture became even more alarming. After weeks of uncertainty about Clark's groin injury, the Indiana Fever finally confirmed that she underwent additional medical evaluations. The team's official statement was carefully worded, mentioning that no additional injuries or damage were discovered, but the fact that further testing was needed at all tells you everything about how serious this situation had become. When you're running extra tests on a groin strain that's lasted over a month, you're not dealing with a simple pulled muscle.
Colson sustained an anterior cruciate ligament ACL tear, Sydney into her ACL in her left knee during the first quarter of the game.
It began in the first quarter.
The physical pain is just one part of Clark's nightmare. In her conversation with Sue Bird, she opened up about the mental toll these injuries have taken, describing some days as really frustrating. For someone who built her entire identity around basketball excellence, being forced to watch from the sidelines has been psychological torture. She's gone from setting records and breaking barriers to dealing with rehabilitation appointments and uncertainty about when she'll return to form. The mental aspect of recovery, especially for elite athletes, can be even more challenging than the physical healing.
I think you're wrong. Again, you think it'll be a couple more weeks before CC returns to practice. Please stop always saying negative and depressing hit about Caitlin Clark. She has been running full court consistently as reported for over a week. She may be, Scotty Boy is right, and it's still going to be a couple weeks. You should want to be encouraging to the fans, bro. Like, let's just give it some time. Not just it's going to be a couple weeks. Like, I don't know what's going on.
During that emotional podcast appearance with Sue Bird, Clark revealed something that shocked even seasoned observers. She talked about feeling a sense of responsibility to play, knowing that her absence directly impacts WNBA viewership and attendance numbers. This isn't just about personal achievement anymore. Clark has become so central to the league's success that her injuries create ripple effects throughout the entire organization. She's carrying the weight of knowing that when she can't play, the sport she loves suffers along with her.
Now, initially, it was a groin strain, like a pulled muscle. Caitlin Clark has not played a game since July the 17th. It is now August 12th. In 5 days, Caitlin Clark...
Cohesion might be the right word. They've had cohesion issues this entire season. When Caitlin Clark is in, the team plays completely different than when Caitlin Clark is not on the court.
The pressure Clark described goes beyond individual performance. WNBA ratings and attendance have shown noticeable dips when she's absent from games. This creates an impossible situation where the league's biggest star feels obligated to return before she's fully healthy, potentially risking further injury. It's a vicious cycle that highlights just how much the WNBA has come to depend on one player and how that dependency is now creating problems nobody anticipated.
A whole 30 plus days for a pulled muscle, essentially. I've been saying this. Caitlin Clark adding that muscle was way too fast. Probably messed up her mobility, and her basically her equilibrium is off. Her balance is off.
What's remarkable is how the Indiana Fever has managed to survive without their cornerstone player. The team has actually maintained a winning record during Clark's absence, showing a resilience that surprised many analysts. But this success comes with its own complications. While it's positive that the team can compete without her, it also raises questions about how she'll fit back into a system that has learned to function in her absence. Integration after long injuries can be just as challenging as the recovery itself.
Practice, she's been able to get a little bit more in her full court running, with her all of her body weight. It's really building up from doing minimal to then building some endurance. To do longer periods of time. She's been able to do a little bit more on the court in terms of how she moves.
Caitlin Clark's
The rehabilitation process Clark is going through involves more than just physical therapy. Soft tissue injuries like hers require a delicate balance between rest and gradual activity increase. Too little activity and the muscles weaken. Too much, and you risk re-injury or compensation injuries in other areas. Clark's medical team is walking a tightrope, trying to get her back to elite level while ensuring these problems don't become chronic issues that plague her entire career.
Possibly be injury prone, maybe. You know what I'm saying? We don't know because they're not being transparent with the injury. They're saying it's a growing strain. It's clearly not a strain, guys. I just want to let you know. Now, Stephanie White said this yesterday.
Perhaps the most emotional moment in Clark's recent interview came when Sue Bird shared a story about a young fan who was inspired by Clark's impact on the game. The story moved Clark to tears, showing a vulnerability that fans rarely see from professional athletes. It was a reminder that despite her struggles, Clark's influence extends far beyond statistics and wins. She's become a symbol for young girls who see basketball differently because of her, and that responsibility weighs heavily on her even during her darkest moments.
Well, this is the kind of update I never want to have to give. And this is a bad one, and it affects the same position. We lost two very, very competent players, including the starting point guard that was filling in for the other starting point guard.
This injury saga raises serious questions about Clark's long-term career trajectory. Multiple soft tissue injuries in one season often indicate underlying issues with training load, recovery protocols, or biomechanical problems. The fact that she went from never missing games to missing nearly 20 in one season suggests something fundamental has changed. Whether it's the increased physical demands of professional basketball, inadequate recovery time, or simply the natural progression of an elite athlete's career, these injuries could be a warning sign of bigger problems ahead.
They only have 12 games left, and there is exactly 4 weeks left in the regular season. And the craziest thing about this last groin injury with Caitlin Clark is how it's been covered.
The medical evaluations may have ruled out additional damage, but they haven't provided a clear timeline for Clark's return. Team officials continue to emphasize that there's no timetable available, which in professional sports usually means the situation is more complex than originally thought. Each day that passes without concrete progress updates suggests that Clark's road back to full health is longer and more uncertain than anyone wants to admit.